Okay, we'll start with this. Shields contends number 2 spot on the pound for pound is based on more than boxing. She has long expressed her respect for Taylor's abilities, accomplishments, and popularity. No one could convince Shields, though, that Taylor or anyone else should be ranked above her on women's boxing's pound for pound list. The Ring is among the outlets listing Taylor first, and Shields second in its top 10. I knew she was going to say something about that. As soon as I saw that Ring magazine had Katie at number 1, I knew it wouldn't be long before Clarissa started complaining, contending that misguided voters couldn't logically make the argument based on the results of their fights since both boxers made their pro debuts a week apart in November of 2016. If what Clarissa wants is logic, here's logic. You both debuted in the same year, but Katie's a more active fighter than you are, with a better resume than yours. The undefeated 5-weight world champion and 2-time Olympic gold medalist maintains their vastly different personalities sway some voters to overlook what Shields considers very obvious evidence that she should secure her top spot. I think it's who you like personally, sometimes, Shields told The Ring. I think it's, do you like how humble somebody is? I think a lot of the judging went outside of the actual boxing in the ring. I feel like it's, oh, she's so soft-spoken, she's so nice. I think she just got married recently. Does Clarissa think they're not doing that with her? There are a lot of people who back Clarissa for no other reason than the color of her skin. They don't know much about her professional boxing career, or who is it exactly that she won all of those belts from. They can't tell you much. She continued, they look at stuff like that, and I look at the actual boxing inside the ring, because I don't think her last 2 fights with Amanda Serrano were too exciting. I'm happy that she won because I'm a fan of Katie. When it comes to me, though, my boxing skills are one of one when it comes to women's boxing, and I pride myself on that. Shields, 30, makes a strong argument. She has barely lost rounds on her way to becoming undisputed champion in the junior middleweight, and heavyweight divisions. It'd be a strong argument if it didn't matter who you were fighting. Compare Danielle Perkins or Lonnie Daniels to the girls that Katie's been fighting, Chantel Cameron, Amanda Serrano, or does it not matter who you're fighting anymore? The Flint, Michigan native who faces Franchon Cruz in a rematch DAZN will stream February 22nd from the Little Caesars Arena in Detroit also has been a unified super middleweight champion. Shields avenged her only loss as a boxer by unanimously outpointing amateur nemesis Savannah Marshall in October of 2022 at London's O2 Arena. Her rematch with Marshall was the only remotely competitive fight of her professional career, and she still won 7 of 10 rounds on 2 judges' scorecards in Marshall's home country. I try not to get caught up in these lists and awards and stuff like that, Shields said, because it can distract you from what you want to do in life. I know I'm pound for pound number 1, no matter what the votes say. I don't lose rounds. I don't get hit that much. I'm great defensively. I'm strong. I'm fast. I know that I'm a really great fighter. She can say she's not hung up on who's number 1 on somebody's list, but she's the one harping about it. There have been previous instances where Clarissa was ranked at number 1, and I never saw Katie Taylor harp about it the way Clarissa's harping now. Ireland's Taylor is a great fighter. The 2012 Olympic gold medalist has been undisputed champion at lightweight and junior lightweight. The 39-year-old Taylor's majority decision defeat to England's Chantel Cameron in their initial meeting is generally regarded as debatable, but so are her narrow wins over Serrano in their first fight and Delphine Persoon in their initial meeting. Those were close calls, those were close fights, but that's what happens when you regularly fight good fighters, which we can't necessarily say for Clarissa. Critics question Shields' level of opposition compared to Taylor's, especially since moving to heavyweight, yet there isn't a fighter Shields avoided in the divisions she's cleaned out. Who the fuck is there to avoid in an empty weight class? Jadeja Green, who beat Savannah Marshall by way of a split decision last summer, has long wanted to challenge Shields, but Cruz DAZN defeated Green by UD in December of 2023. Regardless, Shields would like to fight Green and Michaela Mayer this year. Las Vegas' Mayer, Shields' former Olympic teammate, is a 3-weight world champion and ranks 3rd on the Ring's pound-for-pound list, 1 spot ahead of Cameron. Green of Paterson, New Jersey, owns the IBF and WBO super middleweight titles. Even if her 2026 were to consist of wins against Cruz, Green, and Mayer, Shields isn't sure she would regain a top spot spot on some pound-for-pound lists, she believes she's been mischaracterized as angry and having a bad attitude, but insists she simply stands up for herself and won't be bullied or disrespected the way she was as a kid.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I think some people have made it their business to make me out as this bad person, Shields said. I could say 100 good things in an interview and one bad thing. They highlight the one bad thing, and been doing that my entire career. I guess it comes with the territory. But I feel like I've been 100% targeted because...
Here we go.
Not only am I a black woman, but a successful, accomplished black woman.
Here we go.
What is tantamount to a guilt trip, I see. You're saying the only reason more people don't support you is because of race, where I would say it's the opposite. There are a lot of people out there who claim to support Clarissa, and it's not because of her boxing, it's not because of her opponents, it's because of her race. If you ask these guys a question, they don't know that much about her, even less about who she's been fighting, where if you've been following both the careers of Katie and Clarissa, you'd know it's not close. Katie's quality of competition is head and shoulders above Clarissa's, and we've had that conversation a million times already. What you would think is that because Katie's so close to retiring, her ranked at number 1, Clarissa ranked at number 2, she might show some grace.
Give her her flowers with the realization that once she retires, you're gonna move into that number 1 spot.
For a lot of people, that's their biggest hang-up with Clarissa Shields, that she never shows any grace. All they ever talk about is her being a champion at 5 weights and how many belts she won, but who did she win them from?
They won't tell you that part because they can't.
Only with Clarissa does it not matter who you've been fighting or who you won your belts from.
So, don't give me the bit about people judging you harshly because of the color of your skin. A lot of people only support you because of the color of your skin, not because they know anything about you, who you won your belts from, or who you've been fighting.
It's funny how the Latino men turn into comedians when Debo come around. Like, none of them are tough. The one and only, I think, tough guy, and then he was on the Ostrain, and then the other one was on the Ostrain, and I'm like, where's the tough Ricans at?
Garcia's Mexican, Subriel is Puerto Rican, and he was also on Ostrain.
Hispanic men, Rolly turned into a comedian, a Cuban comic, Tio turned into an Ecuadorian comic.
No, Honduran.
Honduran comic, Ryan Garcia, Mexican comic,
Puerto Rican.
So now Xander Zayas is a Puerto Rican comic. It's more blacks that's riding with the comics than is there people that's ride with the comedy. Where Bad Bunny is said represent the culture, it didn't represent comedy. They were boxing. That represents boxing. The comedy is over here. I don't know a particular part of the Super Bowl that I seen him show a comic.
Well, if he thinks the Latino men in boxing are such comedians and so funny, why doesn't he challenge Virgil Ortiz to see how funny he is?
Because the Haneys ain't stupid.
So this is Bill Haney doing his best impersonation of Bernard Hopkins ahead of what was the Felix Trinidad fight. What he hopes is to rile up all the Hispanics,
all the Latinos,
in an effort to promote himself and promote his son as the proverbial heels. Which is totally unoriginal. We've seen it a million times. They're borrowing a page out of Bernard Hopkins' playbook, Floyd Mayweather's playbook.
By now it's expected.
Though I will say that if the shoe were on the other foot, and it were a Latino fighter making the generalizations about a black fighter or black fighters that Bill is making about them,
it'd get treated like a national incident. They'd have to call Jesse and march on Selma.
Boycott the buses and loot Circuit City.
I think the saving grace for the Haneys is that Xander Zayas did not reject their challenge. He only said he's trying to fight Josh Kelly, but if he can't get him, he'll be happy to put the one back on Devin's record.
What's interesting about this fight is that it would pit the pure boxer against the boxer puncher with a few nuances. Pure boxers usually have the drop on boxer punchers, with Devin being the pure boxer and Xander being the boxer puncher.
Where this situation is a little different than most is that Xander would have considerable size on Devin Haney, enough that Devin won't have the same ring coverage that he usually does. He relies on his height and his length and his movement to box from the outside safely, which I think would be harder to do against Xander, who's noticeably bigger, and the night of would be noticeably heavier. Devin Haney is a lot more experienced than Xander Zayas, but that experience would be offset by the natural size of Xander Zayas, because he's a big boy.
Helps an outboxer a great deal when they've got a lot more height and length than their opponents, but what happens when they don't? Things can get precarious. Who exactly is supposed to finance a fight between Devin and Xander? Your guess is as good as mine. I think what the Haneys are waiting for is for Turkey El Sheikh to get involved.
Not necessarily Top Rank, who still promotes Xander Zayas.
Top Rank is not going to kick out the kind of money that the Haneys are looking for, so it's not them the Haneys are trying to involve. And even though Devin himself is supposed to have a promoter's license, i.e. DHP,
he's about as much a promoter as I am an astronaut.
Needless to say, Devin Haney Promotions will not be the ones picking up the tab for what is supposed to be this fight. The only way it happens is if Turkey wants it to happen. Xander Zayas is one of the few fighters that have yet to fight on one of Turkey's Ring Magazine or Riyadh season shows.
Maybe that'll soon change.
As far as Bill Haney openly taking shots at the entire Latino boxing community as a means for promotion,
calling the Latino fighters comedians.
what it really accents is a sort of double standard in this country, that some individuals get to make these gross generalizations about an entire demo, and if that same logic is turned over on them, they want to cry about it. Personally, I don't think anybody should be making generalizations about everybody, but by now, we all see the way it works.
The double standard.
I don't know where Bill Haney got it in his head that Devin is in any way like Debo from Friday.
Devin is not a bully. He doesn't fight like one.
But if he's supposed to be Debo, who would that make Xander Zayas? Craig? Keyshawn Davis is calling him out now that he's making his way up to the welterweight division. I get the distinct impression the Haneys don't want that fight.
Why not?
Maybe they see something in that young fighter that they don't like, that they don't want to have to deal with. Maybe they look at Keyshawn as being a high risk, low reward. Maybe it's something along those lines, but they're calling out Xander, they're taking shots at the Latinos.
That's fine, Bill. We're not gonna cry about it. We expect that kind of shit from you.
Hopefully he gets the Xander Zayas fight, because after all, Xander never rejected his challenge. He only said, let me see if I can get Josh first, and if I can't, I'll deal with you. Elsewhere in the world of boxing and mixed martial arts, former UFC champion turned analyst Daniel Cormier has intensified the boxing versus MMA debate, declaring the UFC is more fun and better than modern boxing, pointing to Terence Crawford's tactical win over Canelo Alvarez as not fun. Cormier argues that boxing's elite control now lacks the excitement of previous eras. That's despite UFC allowing 4 minutes plus of groundwork during any given round.
Believe it or not, I think there is something to what Daniel is saying, because if you showed someone the Haney versus Norman fight or the more recent Stevenson versus Lopez fight, I doubt you would make a boxing fan out of them by showing them those fights, and those were supposed to be the big ones.
The best versus the best. So why is it that in modern boxing, when the best fight the best, you end up with a snoozer? Uniform rounds, each one similar to the last, to where if you saw one round, you basically saw them all. I think it has a lot to do with who this younger generation models themselves after. They model themselves after Money Mayweather. We've seen any number of pure boxers climb up the ranks in recent years, like Richardson Hitchens or Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson.
And they're modeling themselves in their style after a 36-year-old fighter with hand issues who doesn't throw that much and has a big emphasis on defense, doesn't make for the most exciting fight. It really isn't the most exciting style.
So when Daniel Cormier says that modern boxing is not as exciting as it used to be in previous eras, I think he's onto something, but I also think that applies to the UFC. Long gone are the days of Conor McGregor and Ronda Rousey, when I think UFC peaked.
I don't think it's as popular now as it was then.
It is important to understand that the UFC is but one promotion in the world of mixed martial arts. There are others, but they are intended to be the best of the best promotion, the biggest, thus servicing as a barometer for the entirety of the sport. And the UFC hasn't had a star, I mean a real attraction, in years.
Nobody came along and filled the shoes of either Ronda Rousey or Conor McGregor. When you talk about excitement, who in the UFC has generated the excitement they did when they were around? Even more interesting is a couple of people that actually follow both sports have told me on more than one occasion that Dana White has been phoning it in for years now, and it recently came out that he has no involvement in the contracts or the matchmaking at the UFC.
Maybe that's why it's not as fun as it used to be?
In tandem with the emergence of Dagestani fighters, Dagestani wrestlers whose base style, I'm told, is tantamount to a pure boxer in boxing. It's effective, but it doesn't make for an exciting fight. Bunch of guys who all resemble Abraham Lincoln that want to roll around the floor in a Speedo.
I wouldn't call that more exciting than boxing. I'd go as far as saying that Dana White is more focused now on what he means to do in the world of boxing than what he's been doing in the world of mixed martial arts. So where Daniel says that the UFC is a lot more fun and better than modern boxing, I think there's a lot of nuance to that conversation. I think we have to look at it on a case-by-case basis, a fight-by-fight basis.
I feel like you're talking about the little guys, Daniel. You're talking about
Little guys.
the junior welters and the welters, the little guys. But what about the heavyweight division?
One of the most exciting, if not the most exciting, and unpredictable division in the sport, where everybody's one punch away from hitting the deck. I don't think it's as easy as it used to be to qualify that statement, that mixed martial arts has usurped boxing as the premier combat sport given the cash injections that boxing has been getting the last few years, the lack of stars over there at the UFC,
And the figurehead of the UFC being more involved in his boxing content than his mixed martial arts content.
You have one of the biggest, if not the biggest streaming platform in Netflix starting to get involved in combat sports. And when they did, they didn't pick up any UFC fights. They went to boxing.
They're still trying to air more boxing. They want to pick up the Joshua versus Fury fight.
They just picked up Tyson Fury versus Arslanbek Makhmudov. Daniel Cormier is no mere analyst. He used to be a UFC fighter himself, a champion. So of course he's going to harbor those kinds of sentiments, and I understand.
Some things that he's right about and some things that he's wrong about.
But I gotta tell you that I'm sensing a shift. I think that the UFC and MMA as a whole has plateaued in popularity for a good number of reasons. But it really isn't getting bigger anymore. I mean, what is the big fight, the big one in UFC? What's the biggest fight that they could put on?
Whereas boxing, for all of its drawbacks, I can name at least 5 or 6 big fights you can put on in the sport that would captivate the world's attention.
So, I gotta disagree. You can always gauge the excitement of a combat sport based on how many people take it in. What is supposed to be the UFC's answer for a Joshua versus Fury fight? What fight do they have that compares? What is the UFC's answer for a Virgil Ortiz versus Boots Ennis fight, or a Virgil Ortiz versus Xander Zayas fight? What do they have that compares?
Maybe in your personal opinion, the UFC is more exciting and more fun, but to qualify the statement, it's gonna take more than just one person's opinion.
Because where you're saying that, some other guy might say something else. Ultimately, I think that boxing right now, in terms of its catalog and what it has to offer, has more excitement on the menu than the UFC does.
Perhaps you're just looking at the wrong guys. You're looking at the Haneys and the Stevensons. You won't get much in terms of excitement looking at them. You have to look elsewhere, Daniel.